Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast and we are back, abruptly back, on the back of a draw in the Europa League. Yes, Claudio Ranieri breaks our hearts one more time. Spurs. Look, if you're with us for the very first time, you can find us on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on X. We are on Instagram. We are on Blue Sky now too. Yes, we're on Blue Sky too. And look, I'm joined by a Compère entertainment events host. I'm joined by two of the finest actors who are going to try and guide and steer you through what it's like to watch Tottenham, what it's like to be a Tottenham fan. What can I say? I mean, many would say they've seen this story before. Others would say a lot of other things, a lot of experiences that we probably can now say as we are after the watershed. Joining me on this last one, Spurs, I'm joined by the wonderful Richard Cracknell. I'm joined by actors TJ Ramini and the ever-lesson, the heartbeat of this show, Darren Hartman's in the house, as we look to address, discuss, dissect that 2-2 draw against Roma in the Europa League, which pretty much leaves things all open to play and going to Rangers with a massive game really on store. And in a situation where, let's have it, that's going to be a huge game for Ange Postecoglou going and stepping into arch-rival territory where Spurs may need a result of kind. Cracks, I will come over to you to open up because, look, last-minute goals against Spurs, always hard to stomach, and then to have to come and do a pod on them. Many would say we should be used to them by now. They should be character building, but still, they do hurt. They do frustrate. Spurs punished in added time, many would say for sloppiness, but Roma rewarded for their continued hard work throughout. We had this discussion off there that game could have really been any scoreline, if we're going to be honest about it. But Spurs missed more chances than Roma. Many would maybe argue that a draw does seem fair under those circumstances. In terms of that league, Spurs, they're on 10 points from 5 games at present. They sit 9th in the proceedings of that Europa League group. It means, like I say, things are open to play. Cracks, how did you see it?
No. Typical Tottenham at the moment, isn't it? You know, for every Man City away, you'll get a night like tonight, or an Ipswich, or a Palace, and it just seems to be the up, 2 or 3 down, then a high, then 2 or 3 down, then a high, then 2 or 3. It just seems like purgatory at the moment. So, I'm really struggling, Rick, to see where we're going as a club. We just seem to be bobbling along at the moment. And I don't know, I think tonight's performance just about summed us up, really. But probably sums up my performances on the pod as well. It's like, you know, generally a load of old crap and the odd moment of blinding clarity and brilliance. Like it just was, wasn't it? It was. I mean, how many times are we?
Can I just say, Cracks, we haven't done face-to-face HR reviews just yet, have we? I thought they'd come around next month.
Yeah, I just feel like I'm in a HR interview here. I don't know, Rick. Like I think Roma got what they deserved at the end out of that. They knocked on the door. We were just so wasteful tonight, so wasteful with chances, and just with our possession. Now, okay, you know that's not down to Ange. That's down to the players tonight. You know, there just seemed to be a sloppiness with us. And Ange made some changes to try and see the game out when he brought on Maddison just to try and keep a bit of possession. But we just keep giving the ball away. Just keep giving it. No care with it. As soon as we get to the top of our first third and try and progress into the second third, bang, we give it away. They was honest. We gave it away. It was either we got out muscled for a ball or we just couldn't find a quality pass. I think Ben Davies taking us up the pitch and getting that free kick on the edge of the box, getting towards the last sort of 15 minutes of the game, told us quite a fair bit of somebody just, you know, trying to do something a little bit different to try and give us a little bit of progress, because all he just kept seeing was everything breaking down. And I don't know, generally, Rick, I'm still struggling to see where we're going, who we are, what we are, and some sort of clear identity under Ange Postecoglou. I really am. You know, it's that's not I want him out. That's not I want him in. I just want to see something. I'm just not seeing enough of anything at the moment, especially after 18 months. And it just seemed a performance that's really indicative of Tottenham, of where we are generally as a club at the moment. But you know, if we keep churning out performances like that, especially in Europe, we're not winning this competition. Got no chance of winning it at all. We will come up against somebody, and you know, when we get to the knockout stages, and we'll just fizzle and fade out of it. So they've got to find something from somewhere. That team needs a leader. Oh, it just needs a leader. I think it needs a leader across the board, actually, from top to bottom. It just doesn't seem to be anybody leading the football club as a club and on the pitch. We just desperately need some leaders in there. So, but finally, Rick, on this little section, Fraser Forster, come on. I mean, that save was absolutely incredible. Now, I know Vicario probably wouldn't have played tonight, and I know there was a lot of concerns about Forster, but just before that, there was a ball through about 2 minutes before that save, and 6'7" of Hexham's finest came out, and the Roma striker bottled that. Absolutely bottled that. He did not fancy that up against Forster at all. And you kind of think to yourself, well, these are those strange moments in football, because if Vicario was coming out, he may have stretched that little bit more to try and turn the ball in. But he saw Forster and just thought better of it, didn't he? You know, it was like the Great Wall coming for him. Like I say to you, you know, with goalkeepers, one will make something and the other won't. You'll never know if he would or he wouldn't. So, but he had a good game tonight, despite, you know, a lot of concerns over him. So just a little big up for him off the back of a bit of stick on social media. You know, we're doomed with him in goal. He was good tonight.
Yeah, he did make some absolutely vital saves there. James Julian, listener, viewer, posted his statement on here saying, look, we've got Rangers, Hoffenheim, Elfsborg to come. If we can't get in the top 8 with those games, then I don't know what to say. We have to turn our attention to Fulham. We will do that, obviously, during the latter part of this show. Dal, let's bring you in. They're expecting positive vibes from you. When is Darren Hartman not positive on last one on Spurs? I mean, that's almost a given in the nature of this man and how he comes formed. Although he's some kind of AI robotic model here. I don't know. I mean, Dale, what was your thoughts on that one? Because let's be honest about it, Roma are, with no disrespect, a bit of a mid-table side in Serie A. They were winless in their last 5 games. I mean, they're a side that are quite frankly searching for their identity under Claudio Ranieri. Many would have thought Spurs, even given the fact that, you know, we'd have had to make changes for this one, that should have been hopefully was a routine win, but, you know, a win Spurs should have taken in their stride. But it just felt towards the end of the game there was a lack of game management. And whether you look at the players around for that, where do you stand on that in terms of the way that game played out?
For me, I go players right now. I hear Cracks talking about an identity, and I feel there is an identity. I feel there is a way of playing. There is a pattern. And unfortunately, it's when you have inconsistencies, when players don't do the jobs they're meant to do, when performance is not at the level they should be at, what we can do is blame the system and go, the system is failing. But the system isn't. It's the performances within it. The machine is there to work. And as we saw against Man City, the machine worked. And when it's performed well, when everyone executes their job, it works. However, today, it was sloppy. And it was very sloppy. There was a lot of times when the transition out from the back 4 into the midfield, the ball either wasn't moved quick enough or the pass wasn't executed well enough. And that was a lot of what was happening. And we made the game difficult for ourselves. And like you said, Roma are a mid-table side. They're building their confidence. They've got Ranieri there as the new manager. And we allowed them to grow into the game. We allowed them to build their confidence. We allowed them to build their momentum. And we gave them the opportunities. And that's something that we can't do against a side that is well drilled. we got lucky today to get the draw. And that's, remember, people, we didn't lose tonight, guys. We didn't lose. We got a draw. Remember, I'm still always on the positive on the thinking. We drew a game, but it was a late goal that may feel like a defeat, but it wasn't. And there's so many things in this that we need to look at as Spurs fans and as the players themselves. They've got to look at themselves and go, why did it not click? There were moments when Solanke was doing a lot of leg work. I know some people say that as a striker, he's not giving us what we need, but he did a lot of leg work in that game, closing down, pressing. And sometimes he was doing it alone. There were moments when he was running from one to another and going, where's the system that we've had? Why is not people doing this with me? Sarr had moments when he was great and moments when he wasn't. Bentancur blew very lukewarm tonight. And I think every man has to kind of look at themselves today. And I don't think we can always be in the habit of, we don't play well, we throw a gaffer under the bus. We don't play well, we throw the system under the bus. Because if we're going to continue to do that, we're only going to be on a constant rebuild, and we're not really going to see the bigger picture right now. And I feel there is a bigger picture at Tottenham, that we're still in it. We're still involved. And as I can't remember who put up that post about our next 3 games in Europe, they're all winnable. They're all absolutely winnable. And we should be very confident that we can take those games, we can win those games, we can comfortably win this. And also, I know we've spoken in our chats as Spurs fans, like the last one, the Spurs family, and we was worried with Vicario not being there. And a lot of people had thrown our keeper under the bus before he put the gloves back on. They weren't even warm on his fingers, and we was already going, Fraser can't do it, Fraser can't do it. And I was like, this is a moment for someone to be a hero. It's a moment for somebody else to step up. Let's see who does it. Tonight, Fraser didn't have a bad game. You can't blame him for anything that happened tonight. I know there was moments where I looked and go, oh, is he going to move his feet enough? Is he going to get across, when he looked like the legs weren't going as fast as the hands were probably going or the brain was? But then you see the reaction saves. You go, it's all working. It's all there. I think right now is a moment where we're in that, where we're all feeling a bit pity. We're a bit pitiful. Spurs fans were like, oh, woe is us. It's sad for us today. It doesn't have to be. We went and we played Roma at home. We got a 2-2 draw. We're still in Europe. We're still on a win. We haven't lost tonight. We beat City. We drew against Roma. Remember what you said, Rick? You said that Roma are kind of mid-table side, but Roma got some very good players in that team. And when we look at the end of the season, when Roma start clicking, you remember that. Remember, they had the player that we wanted to buy. Remember, Spurs fans, you saw what he did with a free kick. We were screaming for the ball. Look, like, they've got players in that squad who can have moments. And we allowed them to grow in confidence. However, let's not dampen our confidence. Let's still go and win our game at the weekend and stay on the positive of what Spurs is actually doing. Let's stay on it, guys. Let's not sink the ship now.
I listened out. I mean, very fair words there and what you say there. TJ bringing you in, look, very similar in terms of, I think you're obviously look at the way in that game is shaped out. And you said to me, actually, before we started recording, that Roma are no mugs, despite their league position. Many would argue maybe it not being, in alignment with kind of the squad they have got there, and they have struggled for form under Ranieri so far. Like I say, the winless in the last 5. Do you have any concern, TJ, about the way that game seemed to slip away in that last 20 minutes? It seemed, as I said to Dow, there a real lack of anybody really trying to get hold of the ball, keep things calm, and maybe there is a real lack of maybe genuine leadership there. I think we've said that a lot throughout the season in some of these games where you can feel the game is getting away for Tottenham. I think from the neutral, it was probably a cracking watch. It was end-to-end, don't get me wrong, but when you do need the likes of, I take it back to those earlier days of, yesteryear, the likes of a Scott Parker, a Wilson Palacios, dare I say Pierre Højbjerg, not that I'm calling for him to come back, but a player that will literally sit there, break up play, see out the game. Is that what Spurs are missing when you look at that last 15, 20 minutes of how we ended up drawing a game that it felt we should have maybe seen out?
Well, let me start with, I thoroughly enjoyed that game. Thoroughly enjoyed watching it. It was a really entertaining game of football. It was end to end. Lots of missed opportunities on both sides. And to echo Darren, we didn't lose the game, guys. We didn't lose the game. It was a hard fought game against. This is Roma. I understand it's not the greatest Roma side that they've ever had in their history, but they're a huge club, and I think when any kind of big club from one of the other major European leagues comes to any Premier League opposition, I do think they arrive with a chip on their shoulder, because every single player on earth, unless you're at Madrid or Barca, they know that the Premier League is the biggest game in town. It just is. And even if you are Real Madrid or Barca, still, man, the Premier League eclipses every other league in the world. Now, many will say that that's because our marketing is so much better than anyone else's, rather than the football. But that aside, so I think any team is going to come to London, come to Tottenham and want to prove a point. And they did. They fought hard, man. I was talking to my brother throughout the game, as well as you, Rick, and a couple of my friends here in the States and back home. And yes, our passing was poor. And to Cracker's point, we kept on giving the ball away over and over and over again. And my brother was making the same point. And I said, but their press is very effective. They really worked their socks off tonight. And again, when you're under pressure and, things aren't going quite so well, that spreads throughout a squad very, very quickly. And so I enjoyed that game. I thought the draw was a fair result. Now, do I care about fair results? Would I like to kind of win every game and come along on this show and go, whew, got away with that one? Of course I would, but it just wasn't meant to be tonight. I want to echo Darren's sentiment as well about Ange. I am an ardent Ange enthusiast. I always have been. I still am. I think his system is definitely working, but if the players don't execute that, then we really look like we're sputtering because it's high risk. I've said this so many times. It's high risk, high reward, which is why we are the highest scoring team of anybody in the Premier League. And so I just think that, was it a shame to, of course, lose the goal in the dying minutes? Yes, it was. But we've been here before. We will be here again. That's the nature of this sport, not just our club. But I really think that we should look at the positives here. And I'm not trying to, gild a turd. I'm really not. I think we're looking good, man. Of course, we've just come off an epic victory. And tonight just wasn't quite our night, but I'm happy, man. From where we were, and of course we'll have to go and beat those teams. And I want to go to somewhere like Ibrox when they're going to want to really stick it to Ange with his Celtic connections. And any Scottish club has got a lot of, I'm going to say hostility, but a lot of energy, let's just say, for any visiting English team. So let's go there, man, and have a great night and see what we can do. Lovely to be back on the show. If you're watching or listening from America, happy Thanksgiving to you.
TJ, thank you so much, my man. Like I said, we wish that all the way back to you over there. I mean, look, we have to bring that fact into play, what TJ has mentioned there about where we are in terms of the standings now for Tottenham. Just a reminder again, Spurs are sitting in 9th in that Europa League table. They're one place outside the automatic qualification, and it means that game against Rangers, as we said at the top of the show, looks set to be really, really key for Tottenham. Obviously, the fact that they can finish in that top 8, it's automatic progression to that next round of the Europa League. Otherwise, it looks like Spurs would have to face a playoff, which, given already a significant run of games for Spurs to come, and of course, FA Cup involvement, please God, League Cup involvement still in that point. We obviously would like to avoid a playoff, but I'm sure many would say, look, if that's the be all and end all, you take the playoff. You don't want to crash out the competition. But it doesn't mean Spurs have got work to do. I think that's fair. And look, we know what Spurs are like. They don't tend to do things easy. But maybe if you'd argue when you looked at their final remaining 3 fixtures and you said, look, if you were to win those remaining games, that's good enough for you to see you qualified. Maybe you take it. But that Rangers game is going to be massive at Ibrox. It's going to be hostile for sure. But, Spurs have, if we've seen this season, they've provided some really results you would never have thought they would do. I mean, like I say, the City game is an example. They've beaten Villa at home. They've won away at United. We'll come on to set pieces shortly because Ange Postecoglou is currently being asked about that in his post-match presser. So we'll bring that to you in a very short amount of time. I just want to run through the team for this one because, I mean, that was going to be the dilemma, I think, on many Spurs fans' mind in terms of what Ange would do in terms of that selection. So in terms of how Spurs lined up, it was a strong side that Ange named to host Roma on that Thursday night with only 4 changes. We knew obviously beforehand that we was without goalkeeper Guillermo Vicario. He joined already an unavailable list of players, including Romero, Mickey van der Ven, Richarlison, Odegaard, and Mikey Moore, as well as a suspended Will Lancashire, and along with Jed Spence and Sergio Reguilon, not registered to play in the Europa League. We know Bentancur is going to be Spurs' Thursday night man for a while as he sits out his 7-match domestic ban. He came into the side along with Archie Gray at left back and Fraser Forster in goal to start building up that necessary sharpness and rhythm as he replaces Vicario in these months ahead. Brennan Johnson started the match after coming off the bench to score against Man City, of course, in that 4-0 win. James Maddison wasn't risked at the start of this one. We know he was carrying a little bit of a knock, but did appear in the second half of the game. So Spurs lined up with a team of Forster, Porro, Dragoshin, Davis, Gray, Sarr, Bentancur, Kulusevski, Johnson, Solanke, Son, with the bench of Austin, Whiteman, Hardy, King, Adogi, Basuma, Madison, Elise, Bergvall, Williams, Barnett, and Werner. Obviously, our lineup's always broken down by the wonderful Ali Gold. As highlighted by one of our own, Darren Hartman over there, it was Dybala in the lineup for Roma, a player that we know Spurs have tried their best to sign on more than one occasion. Cracks, in terms of the lineup, was you surprised that Ange went as strong as he did, or is that just a consequence of, as he said beforehand, ideally wanting to get the job done and qualify really as soon as possible in this competition?
Yeah, I think he's gone for the win tonight rather than sort of managing, which he seems to have done in all cup competitions. So I think he was hoping to get job done, get that win tonight. Our next 3 fixtures in this Rangers away, which is going to be tough given that history of Ange and it being one of these battles of Britain, as they seem to be known when an English team plays a Scottish team. But then after that, it's Hoffenheim that currently sit in 25th and Elfsborg, which sit in 28th. So it shouldn't be beyond us to actually progress. But the win tonight would have been good. It would have taken the pressure off of going to Rangers. And then you kind of think to yourself, for those last 2 games, we should be able to put, this is Tottenham, innit? We should be able to put a team out that sees us over the line and then into the knockout stage. So yeah, he's gone for it. He's a bit hamstrung with choices as well at the moment. And as you said, Bentancur, who I don't know, appears to be racist at the moment domestically, but not in Europe. I can't quite square that circle of how that quite works, and with all the ban and that. But that's for another day. He's going to be a Thursday night player. So yeah, the lineup really was, a touch stronger than expected, and but it never came off tonight. So, but they got some decent players in their side, Roma as well. But as we were saying at the start of the show, really after 2 minutes and going 1-0 up, and with Roma's confidence at the moment, they're not pulling up any trees domestically. And you'd think to yourself, right, okay, 2 minutes in, penalty, here we go. But we just let it sort of slip through our fingers, and they really looked like one winner only towards the end of that second half. So there's strange things, aren't they, draws? Because if you're 2-1 down for whatever reason, and then you snatch one in injury time, everybody comes on here and just goes, yeah, okay, well done, we was where we was, and we showed some fighting spirit and nicked one and got a draw. But when the shoe goes on the other foot, it really does give a little bit of a different texture and flavour to it, doesn't it? But yeah, he's gone for it tonight, and hasn't quite worked out, has it?
No, I mean, like I say, many would argue that in terms of the lineup he fielded, Dow, he went as maybe strong as he possibly could under the circumstances, given, of course, that we've got a huge game against Fulham at the weekend. Again, I think many sometimes look over the Europa League and they look at the Premier League and kind of week to week. As we know with Tottenham, you're not sure what you're going to expect. I said there, I described a box of chocolates the other day. You could go from a Galaxy Caramel to a Bounty, and I apologise for all the Bounty lovers out there, because there's many Bounty lovers out there. There's no disrespect to Bounty.
Wash your mouth out, Ricky Sachs. I love that Bounty bar. Oh man, that Bounty. It's nearly selection box time, isn't it? Across the world. So when you get your celebrations or whichever one the Bounty bar appears in, if you don't want them, I'll put up my address at the end of the show, and you can post them to me, because Bounty is a Don chocolate bar.
I feel like this is the same recurring conversation we've had for the last 5 years.
Tonight, Rick, do you know what? Tottenham was Tottenham tonight. Why don't we just have the next half hour on your favourite chocolate bar? I think we've done it before, and we had record comments, didn't we?
Right. You know
Come
what?
on.
You've started it now. Come on, Cracks. What's your favourite out of the
Here
celebration
they come.
box?
Here they come. But I love the bounty. I love a Twix as well. But I miss. Wake up, kids. Anybody over 107 like me? There used to be a chocolate called Golden Cup. Oh man, what a chocolate that was! Look it up. Look it up. Not even the mint Cracknell. There used to be a chocolate bar called mint Cracknell, and it still wasn't my favourite.
That went out of service when you started coming on, didn't it? That got pulled.
Here they come. Look at for the listeners on audio tomorrow. Down the comments. Here they come. Look at this. It's just a long list of chocolate bar.
It's a long one.
We'll get TJ on this because they have weird things like Mike and Ike and Twinkie bar and like Swedish fish and I don't know. My lad comes home with all these weird and wonderful American chocolates.
That's what he calls it. You reckon they're chocolate? There might be something else. Let's go to TJ quickly, and we'll go to Dow. Let's quickly go to this. TJ, quickly, favourite chocolate out the celebrations box or equivalent in the States over there?
Love me some chocolate. Crackers is right. Like the chocolate here is not only weird, it's actually revolting, practically inedible. There's actually, because I looked into this, like why does American chocolate taste so foul? And there's actually hundreds and hundreds of thousands of comments about why does American chocolate taste like vomit? I do apologize if people are eating their dinner at this time or getting ready to have their Thanksgiving lunch, but it really does. So if we're talking celebrations, obviously that's the Mars side of things. So anything to do with Maltesers, I'm all about it, right? Anything to do with that. And then if we're going heroes, because I am a Cadbury loyalist, to be honest, like you could wrap an old shoe in Cadbury chocolate and I'd be delighted. But I do love a twirl. I do love a double decker. Goodness me, like any of the Cadburys, I'm your man. And Crackers, you can have my bounty bars.
Love that. Dal, very quickly. It's coming to that time. Where are we going this bloody podcast? Dal, favourite one?
God bless you guys. God bless you. I'm a Malteser, man. Yeah, I'm giving a Malteser. I'm happy, man. I'll send a double decker to you, TJ, because I'm not on a double decker. You can have all of those. I'm not touching those. And listen, Crackster, some people in my family will fight you for the bounty. I'm going to say.
Nice, lovely.
There you go. I feel so bad about bounty. Downgrading.
We've done 30% more of the content of this show has been about chocolate than Tottenham v Roma. This is what they want.
If only it was that easy. If it was that easy. You said
please don't ask them which one is more satisfying, a box of Cadbury Heroes, or please.
This will get us gold at the awards next year. Never mind your silver. God. This is going gold. That's where
we're going wrong. Dedicate half the show to the box of chocolates for confectionery. Right, we're going to quickly switch agendas before we do get carried away.
Let's do it.
I mean, there's so many VAR incidents in that game. I've got to tell you, how many times was there a review of goals and disallowed goals? We'll try and cover the main ones as we do go on this show, if we can. So Spurs awarded a penalty eventually in those first couple of minutes, as VAR recommended the ref to view the monitor. I mean, in real play, it looked a stonewall one as Hummels tripped Sarr. Not really sure why ref Glenn Nyberg didn't give it in the first place, but to be fair, there was a good advantage played after Son had been fouled, which prompted the move to lead to the penalty. Sonny sending the keeper the wrong way from the spot early for Tottenham, which should really have opened the Roma team up as a whole. For Sonny now in the Europa League, it's 14 GAs, 12 starts, Heung-min Son in this competition as well. He already has for the season 7 goals and 6 assists for club and country overall. So Sonny, a good return ratio, despite many suggesting he's having one of his off seasons. And to be fair, that really should have set Spurs in control and under the ascendancy. But as we know, that game really, for those that watched it or are going to be watching it back on the rerun, it was a game of end-to-end at times because, you know, this is the nature of Spurs at the moment when it comes to the way they want to play. I mean, we'll stick with Sonny on a second if I can. TJ, I'll come over to you, my man, on Sonny. You know, many may be critical of the fact that he hasn't reached the heights of what it has been in previous seasons, but still decent goal return. Do you think with Sonny it is about really game after game, getting in that rhythm now? And I'm sure, like we know with Sonny, he'll always find the back of the net. Yeah,
I mean, I was going to say I don't understand the Sonny criticism. I do, but I really think it needs some tempering. He's an outstanding player. Like, for me, no doubt, a world-class player. And again, like whenever you hear players from other teams talking about Tottenham, he's either the first player that they mention or the second player that they mention. Like, he terrifies defenders. He's an absolute menace. His work rate is exceptional. His finishing, his one-on-one, again, a lot of goalkeepers and defenders will say one-on-one, like who do you put your money on to score that goal? And it's Heung-min Son. So I love the guy, man. I did from the first day that he arrived. Does he still have as much petrol in the tank as he did before? No, but this whole kind of like he's lost a yard, and I don't think he has. I think he's getting used to carrying more responsibility throughout games, and also that armband weighs heavier on some than it does on others. And also just his command of the English language. Again, enormous respect to anybody who's bilingual, especially if you come from a language where they don't even share a common alphabet. So I think that from such a young man to really kind of knuckle down and understand how important it is for him to learn the language and then try to command the language, I think he's done that exceptionally well. Now, does that mean that he is going to be the greatest leader of men? I don't know, like that's perhaps debatable, but we can never ever question his commitment or his effort or his dedication. I love this guy, man. I don't even know if I want to say this. I will say it because I've said that now, and that's awful when you say, oh, I got to tell you something, and you say, oh, actually, no, right? But there are some people who say, you know, he's only in the team to sell shirts to Korean fans, which is a horrific thing to say, man. Horrific thing to say. I mean, that's just, if this game isn't for everyone on this planet, I don't know what is. Like, if we can't agree as a species that people all over the planet have the right and the privilege to love this game, to worship this game, and to have players from their country represented in the biggest teams on earth, then what are we doing as a species? So he deserves his place at Tottenham. He deserves the armband. He scored a great penalty today. It's his first in Europe. Big up the guy, man. I love him, man. I love him.
Yeah. Yeah, but I say let's hope that penalty is again a sign that Sonny is back amongst the goals ahead of what we know is a crucial period for Spurs. You know, real huge games to come in the context of both end November, begin December, take us right through to January. We've got lots and lots of games to come. Forster really on form, really from that moment, because he made a good save to deny Dybala from a low down tight angle. But Roma did get their equaliser, and it came in the form of a set piece where Dybala's free kick was headed on by Ndika, looped it off the crossbar. Forster tipped it onto the bar, but the ball bounced over the line. You know what it's like, Dale, as you know, whenever Spurs are going to concede off a set piece, there's going to be a lot of hysterical noise made about situations like that with Spurs. I mean, does that concern you by the nature of, I think, a couple of the goals tonight have come from that source? I mean, maybe you'd argue the one at the end wasn't directly from that situation, but the fact Ndika does score from that and Forster's back in the goal, does that concern you? Does that worry you at all?
I'm not going to make it a big thing. It's not a big thing. It was a great ball in for the first goal and a looping header. My concern at that moment, if I'm absolutely honest, was I looked at Fraser Forster's footwork and I was like, oh, could he have stepped? All he needed was a step. He's a giant. If he'd just got a step across to his left, he would have got a finger to it, like a proper hand to it. But you know what? It's one of those things. Now, Cracks, you made a great point earlier about leaders and leadership, and TJ just spoke about Son. And I think it's really interesting when I look at this team and this Spurs team right now and leaders. We've got a lot of captains in our squad. You think about Kulusevski, you think about Ben Davies, you think about Son. You've got people who wear the armband internationally, Basuma
as well.
Yeah, you know what I mean? These are players who carry the armband for their country, and they all lead in very different ways. We've got our three captains, obviously, Maddison, Romero, Son, obviously captain and vices. And apart from Romero, when he's on his game, there's no real fear captain. You know what I mean? The captain who's going to scream and shout and pull you around and hold you accountable for a mistake, etc., etc. And I don't know if it's something that is missing in that squad, because it's like they try and lead with their performance. And I get that. Obviously, everyone's got a level of I could have been a footballer at some point in my life. But there's certain players who you have in your side and they don't talk much. They don't give you much on the pitch, but you give them the ball and that's how they lead you. They lead you by carrying the ball 30 yards up the pitch. They lead it by getting the goal when you least expect it. They get it by doing a great clearance. And I'm worried in that aspect about the leadership sometimes in our team. When there was a moment in the game when, again, talking about Ange management, when he brought Basuma on. And I totally got it. You need someone to hold on to the ball. And if you just watch that period, he was working so hard to try and get control of the game. He knew the method. He knew what he had to do, and he was trying hard to do it. But then in that point, you had Kulusevski, then who'd come out in the middle and gone out wide. So he wasn't doing it anymore. But then he's surrounded by what I would call more lighter weight players. Madison was in the middle by that time. Bertveld was in the middle at that point. They're lightweight. So sometimes the leadership doesn't come in the way that we would expect it with players putting the muscle in and kind of dragging the game forward. And I feel that's a little bit of a worry for me. And that's why when we play the Fulhams of this world, and Fulham fans don't come for me, James Price, leave me be, the Fulhams of this world, they provide us a little bit more of a challenge, because that's the game when you need the leader to pull you by the scruff of the neck. The leaders we had against Man City, when it all looks pretty, when everything clicks and everyone's driving, everyone's thriving, it looks great. But it's days like again today when Roma, as some people have said, they're not the Roma of before. They're not a great side. It's when you need someone to drag it. Cracks, you made the point about Ben Davies' run. He tried to do it in a performance. He tried to go, I'm carrying this ball 30 yards to go, look, come on, boys, we can do this. And yeah, that's an element that I'm concerned about in just the kind of the squad that we have, is where are our real leaders in terms of the vocal leaders. I know Son's got a handshake with every player in the squad. That's fantastic. I love that. It looks great on camera. But how are you leading us when you disappear? Because some will disappear on the left wing at times. And who's shouting at him to go, pull your socks up, get back in the game? That's my concern, because Ange doesn't do it anymore, as we see on the touchline. He's taken a more statuesque-like pose, and he's very much going, players, give it to me, lead me. And that's a little bit I'm concerned about. That's Hartman doing a little worry. That's my worry.
Listen, Dal, lovely fair points there. I do agree a lot on there, what you bring on to the fact of, around the element of players taking responsibility. That's really important. A lot is levelled at Ange in terms of that management piece. But I think even Cracks it in his opening line, there's still got to be a degree where players have to show responsibility when they cross the line, that they are taking control of their own performances and of their own game. Because at the end of the day, the manager can only provide so much. I do understand why it infuriates fans when they see Andrew's hands in his pockets and there's not a real animation of a figure there. I will just say, as many will know, he absolutely lost it at one point during the latter part of the half, where he was absolutely screaming at Brennan Johnson to get a hike on. And that's probably the most animated many have seen Ange, probably I'd say, since Chelsea away last season, where he absolutely gave Sarr and Basuma a rapping, if you do remember. He really, really did. In terms of the way that game was flowing, look, El Shaarawy hit a terrific low volley into the bottom right corner, but VAR ruled it for offside. Again, it was 2 of 7 or 8 on the night where VAR was called into action. Spurs going close again. Gray putting in a great cross where Johnson got in front of the goalkeeper. He twisted, hit the Lloyd's ball, which was blocked before the keeper Solanke's follow-up. And that was a really good chance for Tottenham. At that point, you think, how did that ball not go into the back of the net? 2 really good chances for Tottenham that somehow they did not take advantage of. There was one point, I'll say, after that where Cooley got himself in a bit of trouble for pushing Paredes over. And you know what? Again, later at that point, you see Kulusevski and Mancini kicking each other off the ball. It was feisty. It was competitive. Both teams were going for it. And then Spurs coming over to Cracks, if I can. Cracks, Spurs did go back in front. Brennan Johnson supplying the finish. A lovely move to put them in front. Cooley with a fantastic cross. But the pass from Sarr in the build-up was even better. Brennan Johnson burying it for Tottenham. And just to bring Brennan into play now, because I feel like we need to. 9 goals so far this season in all competitions. It took him a while to get going, but it does feel that Brennan Johnson is becoming that crucial player that Spurs do need in terms of knowing where the back of the net is. And I will say for Brennan, that is a skill, that's an art, to be arriving in the right place at the right time, Cracks. How important is that? Dow points to his head there about mentality. Brennan is certainly getting there. And I think if we go back, remembering someone like Raheem Sterling in his prime during that period for Man City, obviously maybe not at the moment with Arsenal, but one of the things that Sterling used to do, which was always renowned for, is arriving at the back post, always being in the right position to score. And to be fair, Brennan, it feels like he's following that similar approach and he's getting his rewards for it, Cracks.
Oh, very, very much so. And not just the arriving at the back post, the way he strikes the ball once he actually reaches there as well is technically really, really difficult. You've got a ball coming at you at pace, which you've got to then guide, not put too much on it, not open your foot too much or too little. It's a real art and a real skill. So the whole thing that he does, the moment he arrives has to be right. The foot angle needs to be right. Everything needs to be spot on. And, as I said to you, this is Tottenham at the moment. For every 2 or 3 balls that we just seem to give away, and you look and you think to yourself, what are we doing? And then you see the move like that. I mean, Sarr's ball down the wing was absolutely, it was Hodo-esque, it was unbelievable. Into Kulu, who took that glance up, and then Johnson puts it away. A really, really a fantastic goal. That's exactly what you want to see. That's what we've got to try and box up and bottle and start bringing on a more consistent basis. It just seems a little bit too much of the other. What are we doing? Giving it away, that inconsistency with those blinding moments. Those blinding moments have got to become blinding sections almost, where we're doing that not here and now, but we are doing for 25 minutes, 30 minutes in a game, 35 minutes. We are always underhand going to be vulnerable. We are going to give away moments when you think to yourself, we've just done ourselves there. But if you can outweigh that risk with the reward, then you have got something. This is the balance I'm talking about, and the identity. At the moment, it's a little bit too much stick and not enough carrot, and then other games it's like loads of carrot and not much stick. We've got to try and find that quality more consistently. If we do, then we have got something. That may come in the form of bringing in the right players to be able to do that, which and should be given time to do. But Brennan Johnson's is an example of what the type of player that we really need to be bringing in. We've got to be getting our recruitment right. He's been a huge success coming in. So whereas there's been others that have come in and they've just not quite done it. Basuma for me, still really on the fence, but Brennan Johnson's come in and been a real success. So we've just got to find going forward in each window when we trade to bring in that type of quality and the lad that can come through and improve. That was a fantastic goal tonight. And I just thought once we got that might just lift us and bring us to that point of doing that a little bit more. But all of a sudden we just slide away again a little bit, and it's just we start losing possession. So I don't know. We sit on the edge of a precipice. Which way are we going to fall, Rick? That's how Tottenham feels. It's like a little bit knife edge, if you like. So I don't know. Maybe I've been a touch too hard on Tottenham tonight, because Roma did put a quality side out there tonight, and they're not mugs. They've not really ripped it up this season, but they're far from mugs. So yeah, it's I don't know. It's another one of those undecided nights. But on Brennan Johnson, I'm a big fan. Absolutely big tick plus for Brennan. Well done, young man. Well done.
Crack, can I jump in, Nick? Can I jump in on that, on the Brennan thing?
Please.
I think it's so interesting when we talk about Brennan Johnson, and this is something to highlight as Spurs fans. Crack, you made a great point there that he's a great signing. Some people, some of our fan base, need to go through their social media and remember the hate they were giving him as a signing and as a player when he arrived, and saying that 50 mils a waste of money, etc., ruining him, shooting him down. Now you can see there's a player in there that with the confidence and the right system and the right play, he looks phenomenal. And people like, he must start, he must play. And it's that bipolar nature of our fan base and that bipolar nature that football does to us that sends us crazy. Sometimes we can't always see it because our passion takes over. and we all want the win. Every Spurs fan, negative or positive, we want a trophy, we want to see success. But sometimes we've just got to hold on a little bit. We've got to give players a little bit more time. We've got to give systems a bit more time. We can't always shoot it down, because Brennan's a prime example. In this season alone, he has gone from hero to villain, and the season's not even halfway there. We've got to kind of hold it down a little bit. You know what I mean, Cracks?
Brother, today he's catching flack today, literally still today. Like, this is the nature, I think, of every club. I'm not going to take a dump on our fans. I think, you know, our fans can be as wonderful or as awful as any other club's fans. And like you said, it is impossible. It's impossible to really watch this game or even to appraise players without those passions, unfortunately, you know, playing their way with our emotions. To echo you both, I think he's a wonderful player, a wonderful young man. He works very hard. I think he's also added a very necessary bit of bite and guile to his game. He looks a bit more kind of beefed up and up for it. You know, he's certainly not going to be shrugged off the ball by anybody. And again, make no doubt about it, that was an absolutely top-class finish with his weak foot on a slick surface. There were 4 defenders in the box, so big up Decky as well for finding that right pass and not playing it to a defender. There was a packed penalty area. Again, Roma worked very hard tonight on both sides of the ball. And that Sarr pass, I just want to say, just before that Sarr pass, Sonny beat their right winger he sprinted to win that ball and played it first time to Sarr, who then put it over the top for Kulu. So a great team goal. And I echo the sentiments and the thoughts of these wonderful panelists, because we have a very, very good player indeed in Brennan Johnson.
Yeah, I'm in that.
I think, Rick, the next stage of Brennan's progress now as a player, he's very much like the embodiment of Spurs. You saw something, and it progressed in increments. I think he now needs to have more of an influence on the game as a whole, away from his goal scoring. So that's probably, but I think that comes with age and experience. And as he bulks up and gets a little bit more wiser, he needs to try and almost emulate that sort of Kulu levels of influence on and around the game. But his progress so far has been brilliant. That's the next part that you want.
I agree.
To see.
I think most of that as well, Crackers, will come with physical strength. You know, how we were talking about Decky last time, and the guy is a bull. You know, you just can't get him off the ball. And also, you got to think with our system, which, you know, everybody knows, right? Everybody does their homework. And again, an extraordinary thing about this sport, especially in Europe, is that, you know, up and down all the different leagues and all that kind of thing, you know, they've all got their rooms where they're watching the tape, and you know what I mean? Like, everyone does such deep analysis on every game that they're going to come up against. And so you got to think that if you're a wide player, you know, whether you're Kulu, whether you're Johnson, whether you're Sonny, whether you're Werner, even, you know, Porro and Udogi, you know, 9 times out of 10, when you're receiving the ball, you're going to be facing your own goal with a guy behind you, maybe even 2 behind you. So having that ability to roll that guy, that's really, really hard to do. Kulu makes it look easy, but I absolutely agree that that's the next thing. And I think it's sometimes advantageous to any player to have one specific thing which would unlock their next, you know, like a power up in a video game. Like, what's the one thing that I need to acquire in this game to go and go up to the next level? And I think that's what it is. It's going to take a bit more physicality, a bit more kind of core strength, because so much of that is about twisting and rolling the guy with you. I'm sure we'll talk about him a bit later, but my goodness, didn't Big Dom do a lot of that today? God, I love that guy. I'm sure we'll talk about him later, but that ability to roll a player, it's not easy, man. And he's so good at it, Big Dom. Love him.
Yeah. Get him on the bounty bars. Get Brennan on the bounty bars. That'll bulk him out. Bounty bars, there's the answer. Come on.
Always goes back to chocolate. Always go back to the chocolate. Just on that point, I think it's really important you boys mentioned a point about Brennan there. And Dale, I totally agree when you say there about sometimes, we don't get that opportunity to reflect on signings. We judge it in the moment. We don't always then look back and reflect in 6 months or 12 months to say, right, we can see now why he was brought in. I made that point in Brennan last season. I felt he was very much overplayed, where Spurs were never really, I think, going to be wanting to put him in so early. But as you boys know, since match week 10-11 after that Chelsea game, we had no option but to force him in because of the amount of injuries that decimated us. So, look, I think Brennan is showing really what a high ceiling he's got capable of and just needs to keep on improving. And to TJ's point there about physicality, I mean, who can forget his, Welsh disciple, if you want to say, Gareth Bale, just how much Bale really bulked up over the course of season 2, 3 and 4 at Spurs. That really transformed him into a different player. I'm not saying Brennan Johnson's going to be Gareth Bale. I'm just saying the way players can transform themselves, it can happen. Now we're smiling there for that point there. That it can very easily be misstrued. Misstrued, can I just say on that point? Look, Spurs should have been 3-1 up before half time. This is again chances where really if Tottenham take them, they see the game out. 3-1 up. It should have been really Kulusevski's shot hitting the post, bouncing back out. Sonny flying over from 8 yards. I mean, look, Stu had his head in his hands, and at that point, really Spurs should have seen and gone into 3-1. As we know, Crackers there, he's shaking his head, couldn't believe it. Sonny then forcing a save, a low save from the goalkeeper. Cooley then once again cutting a right effort shot round the post, and it ended that first half with, as I mentioned, Joe and Postecoglou absolutely screaming at Brennan Johnson to get on his bike, make the run into the box. And to be fair to Brennan, that's the thing we've just been crediting him on, that we've seen such more of him doing it this season, but Ange did lose his rag with him, like I say, up until half-time on that point. But, Spurs went in at half-time. Many would say it was all fun and games in terms of being a classic Europa League face fair where Spurs have been pretty bad, but then pretty good. And Roma, to be fair, had their chances. Many would argue it was a bit too much VAR, but Spurs should score more. And maybe could have Roma. But again, that kind of set up a really interesting second half. So we are going to go for our first break of the show. For our listeners on audio, we have got nearly over 4,500 of you that are watching us live. As always, guys, thank you so much for your... Crackers look so surprised. Have we got 4,500 watching us live? We've just drawn 2-2. I can see the last minute equaliser to Roma. I know. I don't know. These guys like us, they need the therapy as well. I mean, I sometimes feel better when we chat this out. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it, really? I mean, that's what I'm also about Spurs fans on here. When they come for last one on Spurs, they turn up, for the good, the bad, the ugly, the really bad, the ugly last-minute goals that go against us. We've seen it so often at Spurs games, and we still come back for more misery. I think it's the only sport, isn't it, really, that can give you this much abuse, and yet we keep coming back for more on a footballing terms. I mentioned that point earlier. I will just say this. I think I've got to the point where I can mention this in the show. I was at earlier today, the Apple store in Covent Garden, where I was exchanging an iPad for my son. It's his birthday this weekend, so he needed the iPad. It was my chance to be a superhero by getting the iPad turned around. I'm not a real life superhero like these guys here, like Cracknell, Hartman and TJ Ramini that fly the cape during the midnight. We don't know what these guys are up to. These are the real superheroes. I had a chance to be a superhero in dad terms. There you go, TJ shushing there. We know he's going to transform after this show and whisk away into the knight's armour. But I was greeted with such applause as I went into Covent Garden Apple store by these Spurs fans who just said to me, "We're part of your self-harm group." And I went, "Oh my God, it's Samaritan's extra, isn't it?" I mean, the amount of love for the show, I have to say, guys, honestly, it's overwhelming at times. And I have to say, I'm sure these boys know it as well. The amount of times I'm stopped and just people want to show their love and adulation for the show. It's lovely, don't get me wrong. And, to have that connection with people that they associate the pod with being something that is so important to their life, where they do look on it on a form of, needing that kind of extra bit of detail on Spurs, and maybe for some they like to get that second, third, fourth opinion. There's so many great podcasts out there. So look, we're blessed, and we sat there a week ago and was announced multi-award winner and the best Tottenham podcast, which I don't take lightly. It's really humble to be in that position. You guys have put us there, and isn't it ironic, Cracks, that I have to say this point that this time 4 years ago you were taking control of this thing, and maybe would arguably say this is what you took this globally, not me, as I was looking after my first one. God, I mean, where would we have been if you had not taken over at that point? I don't know where we would be.
The only Apple store I was going in was the Greengrocers 4 years ago, Rick. That's about my level of Apple store recognition. So no, It's bonkers, but it's nice that people get it, and we all enjoy gathering, and we had a good time last week, especially Christina when I brought over some ham and cheese from the Canary Islands. Oh man, that girl tucked that away, no problem at all. So it was a nice night.
I have to say this: we're seeing TJ in a few weeks. We can't wait for that, but. I couldn't believe that we were having crackers at the Football Content Awards. I mean, if TJ was with us, I'm not sure he thought what was going on here. We were at a table where we already were meant to have a VIP dinner, and then crackers decided to pull out the crackers, and we started having jamon and a section of cheeses. I mean, I think people thought, what is going on that table? How have they got this extra service? But crackers walks into the Spurs stadium with half a bag of Parma ham and Jacob's cream crackers.
I'm looking forward to next year, Rick, because Hartman says he's bringing some bun and cheese and a bit of and a big bowl of mannish water. I'm looking forward to that.
And I bring the decks too. I'm DJing afterwards. We're doing it all. We're getting large.
God,
if it's where I think it's going to be, we've got to bring everything and the thermals too.
If it is St James's Park, eat your heart out, lads. I don't know if we'll get out of St James's Park alive if we start bringing that kind of food down there. We wouldn't get out. We love the Toon Army, we do. Guys, a reminder for you, if you're not aware already, we are delighted to be sponsored by NordVPN. Look, they've been our long-term partners of Last Word on Spurs. And you're going to need them again, as we know. Look, Rangers, that away day coming up for Spurs is a huge one. So make sure you have got NordVPN in store for that. You're going to be needing to keep in touch with all the latest action across the Europa League and more. We give you 4 extra months for free on a 2-year plan. There is no risk renewals, 30-day back money guarantee. And look, a Christmas approaching, it is a lovely gift. Right, we are going to turn our attention, like I say, to the second half of that game. You know what? I mean, and that sounds crazy when I say this. Spurs should have scored from a 4v2 situation, or not just once, twice, but arguably 3 times during that game. I mean, Solanke passing to Kulusevski, a bit slow. His shot was blocked. Johnson fired the follow-up over the bar. And I don't know if you guys felt this, TJ, come over to you. It just felt one of those nights where I was getting worried we're going to be made to pay for the number of missed opportunities because, like you said, actually, before we went on, Roma are no mugs. They have got some decent players in that squad. And again, really important to bring this to actually the forefront of this game here when we talk about, Roma's lineup. They've got the likes in there of Hummels, Indika, Dybala, El Shuri, Dubovnik. They've got good players. Again, I know they're in a bit of
excellent tonight as well. Yeah, man, they've got good players, brother.
Players.
And again,
was that your worry, TJ? The fact if we don't take our chance?
It's always my worry. They are no mugs. And again, I made this point at the top of the show that people from other leagues like to come to England, like to play Premier League teams and make a point. And they did, man. They worked really hard. So I don't think they're a great Roma side. And, I think if they were, then we really could have been in trouble tonight because, my goodness, they were hungry. And again, I've said this before as well. I'm a huge believer that just extra bit of impetus and energy that one gets just from kind of saying before the game that kind of give them nothing tonight, lads. You know what I mean? Like that kind of never say die attitude. I think the upper echelons of sport, whichever sport it may be, the margins are so terribly fine. So if you can find yourself another 2% or 3% or something like that, however you can find those marginal percentiles, they're really, really important. And I think that's what made them quite so competitive tonight. On paper, are we a better side than them? I think, again, not trying to be biased or unbiased, I think most football people would say yes. Tottenham are a better team than this current Roma team on paper, but they really worked hard tonight. So just a quick thing about systems as well, and Ange and players and just a couple of points on that. Ange has said before, and Pep Guardiola has said it before, is that his job is to get us into the final third. We missed a hatful tonight. And so, brother, if it was ever going to come back and bite us, it was going to come back and bite us tonight. Because to your point, Rick, how many one-on-one clear-cut chances in the box did we miss? Either the pass was underweighted or overweighted, or how many times did we see it blasted over the bar? Yes, Sonny did it. A couple of guys did it. Or, like that weak volley from Porro, and he's so good technically, and it kind of came off his shin, his ankle. We could have scored 7, 8 and conceded 4 or 5. Like if that game had finished 6-3, 6-4, would anyone have gone, oh, You know, that's a crazy result for how many opportunities were created. So that's Tottenham under Ange. We're going to create lots of chances. So the one thing I think we need to improve across the board, although we've scored more goals than anybody else in the Premier League, is finishing, because we create so many chances. We have to convert them.
Yeah, I do agree on that point. I mean, Dow bringing you in that Roma had the ball in the net, but both players were involved in a real offside decision at one point there. Dubov again has the ball in the net, but it was offside. Roma hitting the crossbar. It did feel Dow. You know, Tottenham were hanging in on there in that kind of hour mark to 70 minutes. I mean, did you fear Dow? A goal was coming by the way in which Spurs, it felt maybe at points, started to retreat. Is that fair, me saying that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say we retreated. I think that be wary of Glenn Hoddle when he's on commentary. He starts to make your mind think that things are happening when they're not actually happening. It wasn't like we retreated. We didn't go on and start moving 10 yards back. It was the passes out were poor passes. So when we had the break on, we kept making a bad pass. And the TJ said we had so many 5v2s, 4v2s, like where we should have capitalized and we didn't. And that builds pressure. Because ultimately, football, it's going to be back and forth. And every time they were still in the game, they still had that hunger and we still gave them chances. Our high line is always going to give teams opportunities. But also, we're going to catch people offside. That's what people are going, oh, they had the ball in the back of the net. But they were offside because our high line trapped them. That's what we're also got to give our defence a bit of credit for. When the goal was scored and it was offside, it's
second string defence as well, D.
Yeah.
Second string defence. Well said, man.
And I'm going to highlight something. I know, you know me, I'm always looking for a positive. Archie Gray, we didn't speak about much today. That boy there, his football intelligence is growing game by game, week by week, and Andy's giving him a lot of importance today. And on that side, he worked his socks off. And I think we have to look at what this young man is doing under the radar as he grows into what could be, for me, a player that could have literally a decade, 2 decades in a Spurs shirt, where we look at this boy and go, do you remember when he was playing at left back? Do you remember when he was filling in at right back? He's got such a great head on him. His positional sense is great. And I'm watching him go, and he's not a left back. So all of this in-game experience, all of this knowledge that he's picking up under Ange and in this Spurs side could be a great, great player. And also, he's got a good pro next to him in Ben Davies currently, who's talking to him and guiding him and helping him, because we've got to give certain players credit when credit's due. And tonight, yes, we definitely allowed Roma to grow into a game. We should have killed it off and we didn't. It's learning again for Spurs. It's learning again for players like Archie Gray. And this young squad is still very much building forward. And I know some people go, you know what, as Spurs fans, we can make excuses. As Spurs fans, we can be deluded. But you know what? I'd rather be that than want to shoot every part of Spurs down. And that's not me calling myself deluded. I think I'm very much a realist, but I look on the positive side, half full rather than empty. And I think tonight, yes, Roma, we're going to get a goal. But as TJ very rightly said, we could have had a hatful too. Solanke is paid to score goals. Yes, he is our striker. He missed some opportunity today where he's going to sleep rough. He's going to sleep rough. That header where he hit the crossbar. And also, he's going to look at some of his passes. When we had 5v2, sometimes it was his pass that was the wrong one. And he's going to go, oh, come on, I'm better than this, I'm better than that. And I feel that it's still the development. It's still the process that we're in right now with Spurs. But we're doing it in a way that it's still positive. We're still in a situation where this wasn't a defeat. But because it feels like that, that also shows us that our expectation for this side is higher and what we believe we can achieve is higher. We're not celebrating this point. We're going, we should have won this. We need to do better than this. We've got to improve. So it's all swings and roundabouts right now for me. Swings and roundabouts.
Yeah, I mean, the latter part of that game, Porro deflected Angela's shot onto the crossbar. Porro then hit the crossbar with a free kick. Great run from Solanke onto Son's pass, but his low ball cross to Johnson was cut out at the last one by a sliding defender. And we then did see Ange, to be fair, try and make some changes to change the rhythm of that game. You know, again, many of the suggestions that, you know, we allowed that game to kind of phase out. I mean, Ange did try and change that game. Madison and Basuma replaced Sarr and Johnson respectively. After that, we saw Solanke have a shot after being picked up by Madison, who was actually furious he didn't get the pass back for that moment in space. And further to that moment, we saw Bergvall and Werner replace Son. I mean, Werner very much similar on a number of occasions, doing that long darting run that obviously showed he's capable of after that Man City performance where, you know, again, it was really Werner, no matter what you say about his finishing, does offer Spurs an outlet with that blistering pace. And there was one when you think, how was that not gone in? Because Werner picked out Gray. His cross was headed against the crossbar by Solanke. The rebound fell to him on the floor, but he just couldn't push a body part to knock it in. I mean, it was worrying, I think, at that moment. You do start to fear, is there going to be a goal against us? Because, when you keep racking up cracks, those opportunities, and you know what football's like, you're only going to get so many where you feel we're going to get punished. Was that your fear going into that kind of final 5-10 minutes cracks, despite having a number of opportunities? You've got to take one of them. You've got to take one of them.
Yeah, that you really have to. And Tottenham do that quite a lot. You can feel that goal against coming, can't you? It just builds and builds, and you get warning signs. And that's part of our game where we need to wise up and just, once we are backs against the wall, get ourselves out and get back on the front foot. But we seem to get into the corner and just keep taking punches on the chin that don't quite get us, and then one does land. So we've got to learn to try and bob and weave and get out the corner and just take the centre of the ring again. But it's a bit like our forward play as well. I really like Dominic Solanke, and he does a lot of hard graft, but he is there to actually put the ball in the back of the net as well, which he's beginning to do, but that needs to be a little bit more consistent. He's got to do that thing of being the target man and work hard and get the goals. So, that's one area. If we can get that right, that will start to turn the tide. Ditto with Werner. He gets us up the pitch, but he just maybe falls short a little bit on that final ball or turning it into the back of the net. So there's a lot of players that are like 85-80% there, and they've got to find that extra little 10% just so that they get their final bit of the jigsaw puzzle found, that final bit. If we can get 3 or 4 key players just stepping up and finding that little bit extra, then we are onto something. But we're just that little bit short with a few players and what they can do. Like I was saying with Brennan, if Brennan can find that sort of Kulu ability to be able to take a player on and be a little bit more effective than he is, and as I said, that should come. That also helps. So, there's 3 positions straight away where you go, if you can just find that little bit extra with him, and him, then you've got something. So, yeah, it's just that touch short. But I do like Solanke. It's like tonight, there was a couple of times he took a shot and there was a great opportunity to cut back the ball into the middle of the box. See that, you have to see that. I get that he's a striker. I get that he wants his goal, but the team needs the goal. He just, hopefully he finds that little bit of nous where he goes, okay, there's the ball rather than the shot. They're the moments in games. If we can find those moments and make the right decision, then it's game over and the game's put to bed, isn't it? So that's that's part of the progress that we need to see now.
I think what's really important is with Solanke, I said this before, the problem is he's going to be judged on the standards of Harry Kane. And the problem with that is that there's very few Harry Kanes out there. I've said it all along that I'm quite happy from what I've seen with Solanke so far in terms of the build-up play. But you said it there, Cracks. Unfortunately, he's a forward. He's deemed in that category of striker. Therefore, the metric he's judged on is how many times he puts the ball in the back of the net. I'm quite happy by the fact he's getting into those areas. Adele nods away there. I'm quite confident he will find the goals there. But the problem is, Kane, as we know, was an all-action player and pretty much did everything in a Spurs shirt. That was quite phenomenal. And the problem is, like I say, fans will unfortunately hold Dom to those same standards because it's what we've had before. But I think, am I disappointed? I wouldn't say I'm disappointed with Dom so far. I think, he's shown me in a Spurs shirt what he's capable of. I think his build-up play is so integral to the way Spurs want to play, the way he does draw, not only opposition players in, but also gives the wingers an outlet is so important. I'm fairly confident Dom will still have a very, very good season in a Spurs shirt. And again, the problem is it's nights like this where that lack of scoring is highlighted because, if we go and win the game 2-1, nobody's talking about Dominic Solanke needing to score. Let's be honest about it, because Spurs have won the game. The fact we've gone conceding, the 93rd, 94th minute, and we don't see the game out, everybody's then turning around saying, well, Dom should have really scored. I mean, that's football, isn't it? You're always talking about such fine margins. And talk about fine margins, you look at the very, very end of that game, that Fraser Forster in the final minutes of stoppage time makes an unbelievable save to stop Mancini's volley. Then from coincidentally that remaining corner that comes up afterwards, the ball's worked back, and eventually that ensuing corner, Hummels slam home from close range. I mean, my criticism here, TJ, with the way in which this goal comes about is quite frankly that if Hummels doesn't score, then a couple of other players will score. Is that your disappointing the way in which we defend this? We look at here, there's a collection of 4 players in our penalty area that are waiting for this ball to come across in the area, which it eventually does. And it is obviously eventually tapped in, I believe, by, that opposing player of Matt Hummels there to slam home. But is that the worry, TJ, that, there's a number of players there that are left simply quite unmarked? Is that staggering in the 92nd, 93rd minute?
I don't think it's staggering. I mean, listen, it's one of those photographs that, if we were in a court of law, the prosecuting attorney would show this photograph to the jury. The poor chap in the stand wouldn't stand a chance. I mean, listen, if that ricochets off James Maddison, either of his legs, and either goes out for a corner or, deflects somewhere else into the box or something, we're not talking about those 4 guys that are, paying rent on the back post. But it just so happened to go through his legs. It also went past Porro. It went past Solanke. Just kind of one of those scenarios where everything went right for the Roma guys and went wrong for the Tottenham guys. I think, again, at that point of the game, I mean, for example, if that goal had been scored somewhere else in the penalty box, we'd be perhaps questioning, well, why wasn't that person marked? Why wasn't that person marked? I think that a lot of analysis is really helpful and really useful, and it helps us fans, get the therapy that we need. And I think that it also gives us an opportunity to discuss where we can improve. But then just some of it is like, I feel we'll be chasing our tails, to be honest, brother, if we talk too much about, why were those guys free at the back post? They're there because there's 10 seconds to go and they're buying a lottery ticket and it came in. It's as simple as that. So again, as far as tonight, yes, it's disappointing. We want to win every game. Of course, it's always annoying to kind of lose a game in the dying, to draw a game or to concede a goal in the dying seconds. But I thought we looked really good tonight. I think that we should have scored way more. That's the thing that we should be talking about. Like, how do we convert so many chances into goals? I think that's something that we really need to be looking at. We've already talked about, Brennan Johnson needs to get stronger. Dom Solanke maybe needs to, like Cracker said, you're absolutely right, mate, like a couple of times, just square that ball, bro. Just square it. Fight that instinct to find that back of the net. But I've always said, I used to say this about, I love JD. I was a huge Defoe fan. Love him, man. I love a greedy striker. And so I don't mind that he has a little bit of that in him, but he's such an egoless player as well, Dom. I was talking to my dear friend of mine, Tom Kavanagh, another Spurs boy, lives over here. And I love everything about Dom, man. And I know people are saying 65 million and his job is to score. I have to say as well, I think that as a fan base, generally, I think we have more wisdom than that. And people are going, yes, as striker, you want them to score goals. But I think most of us are seeing just how valuable he is and just what he provides us, other than goals. So I love that he's in the team, man. And I can only see him getting better and better and better.
I think as a fan base, go on, Dave. Go on, please.
On the goal.
Please.
There was one other little issue in that goal. And if you go back one more picture, when you can see the line of them stepping forward,
yes,
Suma doesn't get the call. If you look at that back four,
right,
they all stepped out together.
If he steps up, they're playing him offside, aren't they?
And I think that's the interesting thing about it. When you look back, Basuma came on, and his urgency to try and help. He's standing right in front of Fraser Forster. Step out. So that's
it's a great point. It's a great point, Darren.
He was the leader of the line, it must have been Ben Davies, I'm sure. So he called out, someone called out, because if they had done if Basuma had followed the call, that goal doesn't happen. And I think that's things as well that the boys have got to look at and go, that's a mistake here. That's what we need to look at.
And that's mentality, isn't it? It's that it's fighting that instinct that when you are backed into a corner, figuratively and literally in this case, is to fight the instinct to kind of go backwards and actually step away from the goal that you're trying to protect. It's very difficult to do, but you're absolutely right, man. Should have got the shout, take a little step forward, 4 players offside.
Yeah. This is the frustration. I mean, look, Ange was asked after the game about how that played out, and he said, look, frustration with the way the game ended. Yeah, we should have killed it off a lot earlier. We should have killed it off in the first half with the chances we had. At 2-1, you're always going to be keeping the opposition in the game and then throwing men forward. So disappointing we weren't able to see the game out. Ultimately, we're still in a decent position. And he was asked about the fact of only making 4 changes. And is that, a situation of being hindered by the injuries at the moment? He said, look, it is what it is. We've been in this situation for quite a while. We're fairly thin in terms of the squad depth at the moment. We had 4 kids on the bench, so I couldn't even fill the quota. It is what it is. We've been dealing with this for quite a while, and I still think we've certainly had enough of the game, enough clear-cut chances to win the game. Your team is playing well. You beat Man City, and you had the chances to beat Roma. So will he now enjoy the fact these games are coming thick and fast? And Ange said, look, that's going to be our schedule now, and we understand that. It's the challenging with the absences we have at the moment, but I think our football overall was still good. Yes, we lacked a little bit, that clinical edge to finish the game off. Overall, this is the whole European competition. We've had some chances in the first 5 games, so we're strong, and that is the main thing. Ange was asked about if he thinks what he'll need to finish in that top 8. And a reminder, Spurs are currently sitting in 9th at the moment, outside of the automatic qualifying places. And said, I'll be honest with you, I have no idea. There's 3 games to go. We're in a pretty decent position. You try to win every game and you can see where that takes you. I think probably will be clearer after this next round, but it's all pretty tight from what I understand. That's what you expect. Ange was asked about the fact of trying to improve the way Tottenham defend from set pieces. We know how much he does get frustrated by that question. Obviously, one of Spurs' goals, of course, the header from Ndika did come from a set piece. And said, look, I don't know what to say about that. I think that's the 3rd set piece we've conceded from this season in about 20 games. I get it, but I don't know what to say. Let's just move on. Ange was asked about Sonny getting a goal, but it only being his 4th of the season. He was asked if it's fair to say that he's lacking confidence in front of the goal. He said, look, I don't know if he's lacking confidence. Sonny's had a disrupted year for us, so that doesn't help. But yeah, he had some good chances overall in the game. He's getting in those areas. Look, he's got the quality to take those chances, and we know he's done it consistently for almost a decade. But he's had a disrupted season. You can see he's getting back to full fitness, which is the main thing for us. We are quite thin in those wide areas, so playing like him, we've got to make sure we're careful with the likes of him, Brennan and Timo, because they're the only wingers we've got left, and we'll have to see how we get on for the foreseeable future. But he was keen to emphasise it wasn't just Sonny missing chances. There were quite a few really good chances throughout that game, as well as a couple cleared off the line. I felt there were a couple of cases where if we had more composure, we could have killed the game off. He was asked about Fraser Forster's performance overall, and he said, look, I don't think the big guy's lacking any real confidence. He's an experienced guy, and he's probably thought to himself that why is he here if he can't be called upon and relied upon? And exactly how he proved that game was so pivotal for us. And he made a couple of big saves, and it was important for him to get back into that group in terms of playing football. Now, he was actually asked an intriguing last question before the presser ended, and he said, the journalist, that was great entertainment again, but is the priority of the next 3 games to win ahead of artistic merit and make sure you are above the dotted line? Ange actually said no, smiling. He said, why can't it just be about entertaining? That's what we've all come here for. Would you really prefer us to sketch out a couple of 0-0 draws and a 1-0 win and we get through? I don't know. I would much rather we're exciting to watch and maybe it's an edge of the seat stuff and sometimes we don't get the reward. And like we could have had tonight. But if you want those kind of games, there are plenty of football. There are plenty in world football you can watch every week. I'd like to think when you tune into us, you'll be entertained. I mean, that's a really
Go on, Ozzy. Go on, son. I love that.
It's a really interesting last answer. I think if you're Jason McGovern, you're absolutely loving that comment. If you're Richard Cracknell, I think you're about to dive head first out of the first Villa balcony in Lanzarote. I mean, TJ loved it. Absolutely loved it. Dale looks as Darren does, just always laughing with his hand over his face. We'll cut with Darren in a second, let him compose himself. Cracks, what do you make of that closing line there from Ange in the presser? Would you rather we see out a game and not have to worry about entertaining?
Yeah, I don't want Mourinho.
Are you not entertained?
Exactly. I don't want Mourinho or Conte back, but then I don't want end of the pier like Boulevard shows either. You can get a balance of both. We've seen you can do that. It's I don't know, and football don't work like that anymore. It's like just no, you can't. Oh, okay, we lost the game, but we was entertaining. Yeah, I get that, but this is a results business now as well, and people are paying big money and getting paid big money to and want results. So I don't know, at a club like Tottenham, really, you should be able to get both, a mixture of both to find a balance, like a little bit of alchemy and find that, it's, I don't know. Yeah, it's, of course, I'm a Tottenham fan. I want to be entertained, but I also want to see results as well. So you've got to do what maybe Keith Birkinshaw done and found that mix of both. Harry Redknapp was able to find a mix of both, wasn't he? Pochettino was. Yeah. So, it's he's got to find that mix and that blend. I'll give him one thing. He's true to his word and he sticks to his principles. So, if let's see if he thinks that's like just entertainment's gonna cut the mustard, then he's gonna be cut to ribbons by that eventually. I don't know whether sometimes he comes on and plays a bit of panto villain and just gives the answers that the press conference wants, and behind the scenes it's a little bit of a different,
a big part of
yeah.
I think he's a very intelligent man, and I think he understands the game, of the press conferences, and he's often commented as well, like, when I lose a game, everybody wants me out. When I win a game, everybody wants me in. So I think the panto villain, I think that's not just a timely reference, but I think that's wholly accurate as well. I don't think he takes the pressers that seriously. I think he likes dropping little things every now and again that are going to keep people guessing, because I don't really think he cares that much about what the press say about him. And so I think the panto villain analogy was perfect.
It's interesting. I mean, look, this is in Darren and TJ's world here, and a bit of crack as well. The auditorium down with those pressers, he's a man that does live and ride them, doesn't he? It's interesting the way in which he does come out with such lines, which I will understand. Some will absolutely love that. Some will actually hate that. I mean, where do you sound that for you, Darren? I can imagine where you're going to go with this one. What do you make of those comments?
I think he's playing the room. I do. I think he's playing the room, and I think he's very aware of what the media is doing and very aware of the narrative that it's live by the sword, die by the sword. It's Tottenham are either going to win 5-0 or lose 10-0. And I think he's just going, look, if you give him a question like that, as Cracker said there, he could have done the answer again, oh, there's a balance, and be quite deep and meaningful. Then he's trying to talk to us as fans. I don't think that's for us. I think that's purely him playing the press room, making Jason McGovern have a great night now. He's going to sleep well, know that he's heard it out loud. Costa's probably absolutely losing his marbles right now.
I've just received a text message off him. If I don't think it's broadcastable on air.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. I'll probably get one too. Yeah, all our phones have gone off. Love you, Cost. You know what I mean? And that's what's going to happen. It's going to push people's buttons. But I think ultimately, it's going to be the results that are going to be the things that we have to look at as fans. And I think, if I'm honest, I don't really over-engage in what's said in the pressers, because some of it is also a show, and being in the entertainment industry, you've got to understand some part is the show. And I think and is very much in show mode in those pressers sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the thing with those comments is, I say this easily after discussing for 5 to 15 minutes, is not to blow them so far out of proportion, because, we've seen comments like this that do stick. And I'm sure, look, any manager wants control of the game, right? I mean, that's why he made the changes at the end there to gain control. You don't make 4 substitutions for the sake of making 4 substitutions. He's trying to have an element of control over the game there. So I think, like the boys have said there, to be fair, he's playing the room. But to Cracker's point there will be some fans that will absolutely love it. There'll be some fans that absolutely hate it and say, well, why just say it in the first place? Why not just not say it? I think that's one thing.
He's also playing the squad that he has available to him at the moment.
Yeah, and it's a squad team with many
thin, right?
many things.
So thin, and that's not on him.
No.
We've got, obviously, I don't say we've been decimated by injuries, because I think last season, like, as far as injuries go, my goodness.
At this time last season, God.
Yeah, it was horrific. What was it, like 12 players? That something, it was an extraordinary list. Honestly, it was like watching an episode of Casualty. And so it was
the second half of the season.
Yeah, seriously.
And we never came back on. Sorry.
Yeah, and so look, I think that, perhaps we're coming into, it's funny as well, we always seem to be going into a transfer window really needing recruits. And again, we can spin all of those cliches about exactly how hard it is to get players in mid-season. It's hard. I know we've got the Korean lad, I can't remember his name.
Yang Min Hook.
Yes, right. I mean, he's coming next month apparently. So we're sort of, we've got water coming through the dike and we're sticking some fingers in it, but there's a lot of holes in there right now. So we need we're definitely going to need to make some moves in January. And again, some of the reports that we'll read saying, yeah, we're going to do it, and others will say we're not going to do it. And so as far as what Ange says, to Cracker's point, to Darren's point, to your point, Ricky, it just doesn't really matter. He's doing his job. He's doing the press conferences, which he's contractually obliged to do. But what he says, I don't think we need to take it as anything to be particularly worried about or particularly enthused about, because it just doesn't really matter.
Like I say, I think the key thing to take away there is Ange is fully aware of just how big those final 3 games are for Spurs in Europe. We appreciate that we put ourselves in a position where, look, at one point, obviously starting off with 3 wins, it looked like Spurs were going to hopefully coast the first stage of this Europa League qualifying group. But I mean, the reality is, as we know, this is never a foregone conclusion. You've got Rangers that actually sit above us there, just on goal difference. But this is what it is. It's I don't think anybody, Europe, whatever level you're playing at, Europe is not easy. We always say this. Sometimes you take a point away from home and you win your home games, and that's what normally sees you through. The reality is that Spurs, to be fair, have done okay in Europe. That disappointing result in Galatasaray, as we know, that we got obviously well beaten in. And tonight, really, Roma, if they win that tonight, you probably arguably say we're home and hosed, but there is work to do. So we'll see how we get on that European journey. We're going to close off on Fulham for quick 5. So we're going to go to Jack over at the Fulhamish Pod for our listeners on audio. And we're going to slide you in to, of course, that weekend game against Fulham, where it's a big one for Tottenham, as we're aware of. Look, it's an opportunity for Tottenham to record back-to-back victories in the Premier League. So they haven't done enough times under Ange Postecoglou. That is definitely fair to say. And, this Fulham game will represent an opportunity to be hopefully beating a side that are nearest in the table. Fulham are sitting in that top 10. They have got players that can most certainly hurt Spurs, the likes, of course, as we know, former Arsenal players in Iwobi. They've also got, obviously, the midfielder there. Forgive me, it's gone right out of my head, that joined there last season. Anyone cares to remind me of that player, I will bring it into play. How unprofessional. We will bring him back in a second. We will, because he will come into my head. He will. Ex-Fulham Arsenal players will come into that in a second. But look, in terms of the overall stats going into this for Fulham in general, they have got the likes of Joachim Andersen, Harrison Reed, Carlos Vinicius and Sanderberg out through injury. All those guys expected to be back in action for them, what appears to be towards early next year. But look, Fulham are a side that, they had that really bad defeat, as we know, to Wolves last weekend, where they got absolutely beaten hugely. And I mean, I know Fulham fans will probably be thinking there's no way we can be that bad at Tottenham. And that's, I think, the only concern when you go into this one is that, Fulham will probably approach like many teams thinking, if we can hang in there, we will get an opportunity from Spurs. We always will. So, I mean, to come on this point, TJ, my man, you'll back me on Sunday for your sins, poor bloke. And he's got that. Listen, it will be okay. We will be okay.
Yeah, of course it will.
It will be okay. I mean, TJ, how do you view Fulham as a club at the moment going into that game? Because they've had a fairly good start to the season, Fulham. Before that,
very good.
Against...
I think Silva as well is an excellent manager. I think he's proven that time and time again. Was it Watford? Was that his first job in England?
It was. And obviously then Everton after that, eventually got there. They tried to get him twice.
Yeah, I think he's a really clever manager. I think he's a football man, to use that expression. He's clearly very cerebral as well. Tactically, I think he's really sound. And I think, again, like any Tottenham fans, I mean, we know how inconsistent we are, but also, Fulham have been an issue for us in the past, both in, I won't mention the cup competitions, Ricky, I don't want to make you cry.
not already. November, we're still in them. Don't do that to me, God.
I know. So
to the Carabao. Let's look to the Carabao.
They can be a stumbling block for us. I mean, look, could Nostradamus predict whether Tottenham are going to beat a team 5-0 or lose 5-0? We just don't know right now. The fact that we win, lose. Well, we didn't just lose, but we just kind of had a bit of a wobbly result. So perhaps we've got that out of our system. And come Sunday, we'll be firing on all cylinders and ready to go. Because my goodness, if we do fire on all cylinders, it could be a really, really bad day at the office for Fulham. But if we don't, and those chances which will be presented to them are taken, then we could be in trouble. If we find a way to put the ball in the back of the net more times than we put it over the bar, onto the bar, or into row Z, then we'll win that game comfortably. So I'm going to go for a 3-1 Tottenham home win. Come on, you Spurs. Lovely being on the show as ever. Ricky, thank you, brother. Crackers, lovely to see you. Darren, always a pleasure, mate. Love to all the viewers and listeners, and I'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
Bless you, my man. Thank you so much. We look forward to having TJ back for Sunday. Those games are coming thick and fast. They really, really are. We're using up all the credit of TJ, my man, before he's flying over here. Bless him. I told him, got to wrap up warm. It is getting chilly in the UK.
I promise you. We went out early. It was so hot. I was like, I should have been wearing shorts. But I think that would have pushed the Tottenham fan base over the top if I'd have posted a picture in shorts. I know you guys are perishing back home.
Tell you what, if I see TJ, I'll meet up in a pair of shorts. That'll be brilliant. I'll tell you what, I think the poor man will be on God knows how many thermals by that point. I will just say that point. I will. Look, on that point, as we say there, look, Fulham, thank you so much for the views and listens and comments, actually, as well as come in. You have helped me out. Yeah, I mean, Emil Smith-Rowe was the name I was thinking about. He has been in really fine form for Fulham, to be fair. Dal, bringing you in on this one. Look, they've got some, fairly decent players that can cause us problems in there. I mean, dare I say, even Iwobi is a player on his day that can obviously cause Spurs damage. I mean, how important is it, Dal, on the back of that great win against Man City? And it was great. Was absolutely great. We go and follow up and have a win against Fulham. Really important, 100%. Right?
Yeah, it is. I think for the momentum and for the will, because we're speaking about being inconsistent. What will happen is if we win this game, which I'm going to predict we will, you get win against City, we drew against Roma, and then we win against Fulham. So that's 3 games without a defeat. That's building consistency. That's what we need to start building. That's the mentality we're looking for. Some people talk about Fulham being a bogey side. I've seen many a moment when we have beaten Fulham and we beat them quite royally, and we've done well. We've done well. And again, it is down to us. And I think that's the interesting thing about Spurs right now. Not many teams wipe the floor with us, outplay us. It's our own undoings, our own misfortunes, our own problems that create for the other team. So they hang on to try and get a moment, and then we give them a moment. So I'm saying we're going to win this game. I was going to say 3-1, but TJ, you took it. So I'm going to have to go 2-1. And you know what? I'm going to give Big Dom a bit of love today. I think Big Dom is going to get the winner. So I'm going there. I'm going to 2-1 Spurs win. Big Dom gets the winner.
Dal, thank you so much.
Listen,
we look forward to having you back on very, very soon, my man. Always a pleasure. I feel like, can I ask TJ and Darren what's coming up? I feel like they're NDA'd up to the hilt at the moment. It's Christmas time. There's always stuff going on. These boys, they're ducking and diving off the screen. I can't get nothing from them. I can't get nothing. I might better get a Richard Cracknell calendar for 2025. I'm lucky. But even he's keeping away from me now. Even he's ducking and diving. And God, honestly, these guys, I can't know a pen to the mask here.
2025 it will be revealed. I've got stuff to share, but I can't share it yet. 2025, have some fun for you.
Bueno. Anyway, you speak for yourself about the cold. I was on the beach and swimming in the sea today. Thank you very much. Back at home.
Right, show off.
Listen, happy Thanksgiving, TJ, and all
Thank you.
our
Appreciate
American
that.
viewers and listeners. And I was going to start asking what's a traditional dinner, but we'll only end up back
Bloody
on
hell.
chocolates and back in the madhouse, won't we? So Sunday,
We've all got marriages to save here. Well,
Sunday, Fulham will not beat us. Tottenham might beat us. Tottenham might beat Tottenham, but Fulham won't. And that's the problem of where we are. Very few teams beat us. We beat ourselves, honestly. If Tottenham played Spurs, I don't know. As I've said before,
that's a
it's like
4-4 written over in it. 4-4.
It's typing Google into Google, isn't it? You know, as a kid, you'd hold a mirror up to a mirror and then you could just see like about 8 million of yourself, couldn't you? If you just got the angle right. That would be Tottenham v Tottenham. They will not beat us Sunday. I can't give you a Tottenham prediction. I will probably be able to tell you after about the first 6 or 7 minutes what's going to happen. That's normally you'll sit and watch the first 5 or 6 minutes, and sometimes you go, well, okay, yeah, this is. And other times you watch the first 5 or 6 minutes and you'll go, oh, I think I'm going to go and get the sprouts ready for Sunday dinner here. I'm just going to go and peel those and I'll just keep a little bit of an eye. So ask me to make a prediction about 5 or 10 minutes in on Sunday. We should beat them. They've been as bad as us in some respects this season.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got smashed 4-1 by Wolves last weekend, but then they turned over Forest earlier this season, and they've had some good. You know, they're really up and down. So I don't know. We really do need to another sort of statement home win, really, against a team where you think to yourself, they could cause us some problems by the way they play. City just, the way they play just absolutely plays into our hands. We've got to find solutions to teams like Palace and teams like Ipswich, even teams like Fulham. This is where we need to find solutions to the problems they cause us. So let's see. Call the show 5 minutes after kickoff next week. I'll give you my prediction then. Lots of love.
These divas these days, him and Jason, I tell you, can't get a prediction out of these two, I tell you. Crackers, thank you so much. Listen, massive thank you as always to our watching audience. Nearly over 5,000 of you watching us live. Guys, look, not the result we wanted, certainly not the ending we wanted, but I think as we know as Spurs fans, we're always braced for the good, the bad, and the ugly. You've had the good on this show. You've had the great on this show. I'm delighted to say again, thank you so much for your support. The wonderful Richard Crackers Cracknell, your compere.
Ricky, the good, the bad, and the ugly. That sounds like the 3 guests you've got on this evening. You, the listeners at home, decide who's who in that.
I'm not saying nothing. I know I've only got the great here, the good. I've only got the good. I'll leave the other 2 to decide. Listen, from the wonderful Compère Events Entertainment host Richard Crackers Cracknell, from the greatest actors in the world, Ricky Norwood, come back to us soon. TJ Ramini, Darren Hartman, we love you both. Thank you so much. We have been the last one on Spurs, guys. Thank you so much for your incredible support. We'll be back with you for Fulham on Sunday from us all. Please keep safe, keep well, and as always, come on you Spurs.